made Realtor of the Year. I worked 2 years hard to make her Realtor of the Year, and she got it. And that was, what, 2 years later?
2007.
I think I told your mom about it. I said, make sure she comes to this meeting. It was out at Evergreen, and we had a big, a couple hundred realtors there. And, so that was very generous. And our first Sheridan Days, or Phil Sheridan Days meeting, Wendy showed up with a pencil and a paper. And I said, we need a secretary. And I said, you got a pencil and paper? She said, yeah. I said, you're a secretary. She said, okay. And been doing it ever since. And when I want to know something, I need a guide. Here in Kim, and of course a bunch of other folks too. She's certainly an endearing friend, and I trust you might read the poem I wrote about her. And I said, she's not a bird, but she's a lot of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. And this was just for Bob. Forgive me. I'm not annoyed. Okay, we'd like to open it up to anyone else that has a story to tell, something to say, Bob.
I'm going to start off because you guys reminded me. The first time I met Bob, I also met Wendy. I was working for Key Title Company, and they came in to talk to us about advertising in the Sheridan Days event guide. And I couldn't commit to that, but that wasn't my choice to make. But they found out I lived in Sheridan, and they said, well, we're going to have Sheridan Days committee meeting. Why don't you come to that? And I did. And ever since. So, and it's been a wonderful experience and really helped me get to know Sheridan and a lot of people that here. So thank you for that.
How many good things I can say about
Somebody else have something?
I just want to ask Bob, didn't you and Phil Sheridan used to hang out together? Just a little bit older.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Bob's brother, and yes, Bob is an older guy, and thanks to this guy here, he just pointed it out, but he's not quite that old. And Bob was born a year and 4 months, after I was, and I always thought I was a king, in the family until Brother Bob came along. And then of course Brother Bob, he got all the attention, and I got some, but not enough, okay? But anyway, I did want to mention that Bob has always been a winner, and I just can relate that, we used to get teed off a little bit at each other, being brothers, and we were only a year and so apart. And so we did have some differences. And so we didn't fist fight, but we used to wrestle. And by golly, Bob would always win the wrestling match. And the way he won it is to get a scissor holes around me, and I would give up right away. But I just want to say that after that, Bob has been a winner. He's been a winner all of his life, and I think he started with me.
All the way back here.
I'm from that town just south of here. And I want Bob to know that there's a lot of people there that love Bob White, and I'm one of them. And just to reiterate what someone said earlier, Bob always makes me smile. Bob still does. And I'd smile when he'd come in, I'd smile when he was leaving, I'd make my day a lot better. And when I sit on council, I'd try to have some bad days, but I'd come home and be really pretty darn depressed. And when I ran into Bob, he would always make it better for me. And I just, one thing I learned from Bob, who I think some of you may relate with, I lobbied for the veterans there in Washington, D.C. And so Bob, whenever I got my own way, I'd put my hands like this, thank God. And every time Bob sold a house, he would do that, you know. And exactly that. And then he would say, I'd like to live in this house. And I brought that up to Rudy the other day. I just, over in the midst of selling Bob, a place that I have it, one of your proteges, Wendy Bird, is the one that sold it for me, carrying on your legacy. And I know of so many people that look up to you, Bob, and I'm one of them. And I want you to know that. And then so many others that have told me that if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be making a living today. And I think that you not only made their lives better, but you made the city of Sheridan a better place for everybody that lives here. So I thank you very much.
When I'd sell Gad a house, I'd sell it for me. People out in his favorite sale. We'd have maybe a couple of drinks, you know, so I always managed to wind up telling what we might call not appropriate, friendly Indian jokes. And he always laughed at them. I'll never forget that. So thank you.
Hi, Dad. So, I just wanted to speak first that my dad, Bob, has written like 4 books. And that's not even everything he's written. It's just what is in books right now. And I'm so proud of everything in them. And I just think they're great reads. I just love them. But as far as his, career and all his civic accomplishments, everything he's done has inspired me so much in my life, and it has made me feel like I can do anything, because Dad has done almost everything, right? Considering jobs, different hobbies, all this, everything he does. But anyway, I don't know if you guys would be interested, but I did pick out a story that I thought was, kind of appropriate for this event out of one of his books, and it's pretty short. Do you want to read it, or you want me to read it, Dad?
3 daughters. She has 5 kids, 9 grandkids, and we had 2 boys that are 2 years old, twin boys, and so there's 16 of those little numbers, and she added oversupply of it. So she was always such an upbeat gal. I owned a fireplace shop in downtown Salem, and I'd leave her sitting in the car while I went out and did business, and they had meter maids, and they'd come by and give me tickets, and Susie was saying, well, she came by, but I got you off the hook, Dad. You don't own no ticket, And I gave her an IQ test when I was principal of Canada, and for 4 years old, she had an IQ of 125. And I attributed the IQ to the mother, which is sitting right here. But she had a lot of my mental, other type of capacity, physical. So thank you, Sue.
Thanks, Dad. Well, I don't know, should I read this one?
Yeah.
It's just a couple pages. I think I can do it without my glasses. Everything's ready. Okay, these are in Dad's words. He writes really, it's just really engaging, in my opinion. And this one's called It's Called Life. And this is from his fourth book, which is my favorite. As the sunset of my life becomes a more distant factor in my everyday proceeding, called living each day at a time, I'm reminded that summing up my existence would be an appropriate thing to dwell on at this moment, while I still have some moments left. As most of us are aware, life is like a candle that is slowly going out. The existence depends on the heat and the wind and the quality of said candle. For the most part, my life has been a series of victories over the rigors of my so-called existence. However, this struggle to exist or coexist with my fellow man, and of course women, has not always been a path of roses. I was taught to work at an early age, or a better term would be made to work, when I launched said enterprise of starting to milk cows at the age of 4 under what was some today would consider trying circumstances. No running water, no electricity in a rambling farmhouse that sat in the midst of approximately 600 acres of steep hills and lots of trees, mostly oak. The various routines of this life are contained in great detail in previous writings, so I will not elaborate on those rather harsh conditions. Off to school, discovering the written word, always eager to learn more about the environment that I was living in. The school process was an ongoing thing for most of my life, always wanting to know more. It had its rewards with several degrees, of which I now cherish with fond memories. Then on to the Navy, and then into the world of more work and more work, always striving to be better. My wonderful and dedicated wife, Phyllis, always at my side as we raised our 6 kids, always keeping them in a nice home and plenty of spaghetti and milk. Then into the business of self-employed, about a dozen of those. Stores, restaurants, real estate, and various other experiments in the art of making a living. On to teaching, where striving to be the boss prevailed. Principal superintendent, to add to my laurels in this growing up scenario that faced me each day. Early on, I felt that dealing with people in a positive way was an asset that stood me in good standings with my various 100 jobs. Now, as the older years are upon me and I was supposed to be well off, simply isn't happening, and I'm wondering, what did I do wrong? This list of wrongs seems a troublesome subject, as I always thought I was doing right. So this is a perplexing problem that vexes me to no end. I am near financial devastation, and good things in my life are slowly, you must have been depressed when you were sorry. But it's just so intriguing. The salvation of my life is contained in my very good frame of mind toward my kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. They are my ray of hope for rising up each day to meet these sometimes hard challenges. My goal in life has always been to do something nice for my kids. So, what I do, and frankly, I don't know, I'm just becoming a statistic and a failure. I have shared enough of my problems for one day in this hastily written missile. My wish has come true in many ways, and I am seeing my success in my children and offspring, who have become doers in this wild and tremendous well and coping in various scenarios that they call their life. And for this, I thank God. Thank you for letting me visit with you on the 7th day of June 2013. I wish you the very best, and you will attain your goals. I know that. Your father, your grandfather, Robert D. White, Sr.
I say it's well written. I think I know that I do. My books are a series stories. They like to write short stories. And that, thank you very much, Cindy. You do such a good job on it, yes.
Thank you, Dad. And a lot of his stories are like heart-wrenching like that. And there's also a lot of humor in some other stories that are just, will have you rolling with laughter.
Well, one of my famous stories is going to be at my funeral, of course. Susie probably gave you somebody to read that story, but it's like you're there. And I think it's a very appropriate way to end a life that is certainly going to end one of these days. And speaking of one of these days, you just say, one of these days is one approaching very quickly, and that is time for me to step out of the picture for Phil Sherritt days. My health, as most of you know, is not very well. Wendy has always been up there, Karen, Patty, any of you guys can do this job and do it very well. And I would like to be at some of the meetings, maybe as just a guide, and Jack will help you up on the wagon and throw frisbees or something like that. Would be very appropriate. So thank you very much.
It's about time we got down to true grit on this thing. I kept reading in the newspaper, the McMinnville News Register, about this guy down in Sheridan that was mayor and was doing all these things. And I thought, my God, that must be 6'4" and 300 pounds. And it was amazing. But he kept quoting the what the heck's the name of that tavern that you went to? Green Frog. Green Frog. Evidently they had a lot of extra meetings after the chambers and after and so he quotes the Green Frog in the newspaper. Well, that didn't make sense to me. And so quite a few years later, and I belong to the Yamhill County Sheriff's Posse. I'm Ishidaka, if I didn't say that before. But anyhow, I belong to this Yamhill County Mounted Posse since 1975. And I don't know, when did you start the Phil Sherritt days?
Actually, 1980, Ted and I got together when he was president. We gave it up. And we started, I think it was 1998 or 99, when we became involved again. And Ted and I were putting a basketball hoop together down here. And I said, Ted, people ask me, when are we going to have Phil Sherritt days? And so I said, let's have a meeting. We had 40 people at the meeting. And it was an instant success. And I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Almost. I still think that the Green Frog was, and I never met any of those people, and Bob's the only one I know that was there. But it was kind of a cross-section of your city. And after hours, when nobody else was listening, the hair came down and they said what they wanted to say. And Bob turned around and puts it into action through the council and all those kind of things, which I thought was pretty good. But in my connection with Sheridan, started when, as soon as you started the Sheridan days and the rodeo and stuff, the Sheriff's Posse was the security for the rodeo. And I spent many a night behind the rodeo chutes where the cows come out and stuff, and just paraded up around and enjoyed this. I never did anything nobody did anything wrong, so all I was having was a good time. And so anyhow, somewhere along that line, parade started, and I remember Wendy Bird waving us and telling us where to go and all that kind of stuff for many, many years. And our sheriff's posse was your flag bearers for many years. And we were pleased with it and proud to do it. And one of the things that happened in that parade, I was riding an Arab, and we had the band, Once Again band, I think, or West band or something like that, right behind us. And they were playing some pretty good jivey type music. And I'm kind of bouncing in the saddle and going along with the music. And all of a sudden I realized that darn horse has picked up the beat and he's doing the same thing. Believe it or not, never again. But in the Sheridan Parade, he did it. But anyhow, coming down and getting acquainted with Bob, I realized he's not 6'4". He's not 300 pounds. He's not very good looking. But he's got a heck of a good personality. And so anyhow, we've been together in real estate since, well, I started in 76, and I think we started before that.
I've sold life insurance and sold insurance in Salem, 1963.
But when you look at him, you tell him that he's older than I am, so you have to get started there. Good. But anyhow, Bob, from the realtors in Yamhill County, and I don't have the authority to say this, but I'm going to do it anyhow. We appreciate all the things that you've done over the years, especially working with people, getting them in homes, getting them in things that were really a step up in life. And for an ugly old man, I think that was pretty good.
I've written stories about hundreds of things, a lot of things that I don't know anything about, but that doesn't stop me from writing about it. And one of those topics was real estate. And I think it was my third book out. I wrote stories about real estate people, and it has issues named in it. And he read it, and he said, "You wrote that?" He said, "You know that much about real estate, how they go to other offices, buy houses, friends of yours, and this kind of stuff." And so I just want to add that comment that it's been very endearing to my heart. So. This is my sister Linda, and she's very important. She was president of the Coast Bank, vice president of U.S. Bank, and when you bought, she bought a house. I want to tell them anyway. She didn't go to U.S. Bank to get the funding. I got her somebody else. So I've always been proud of that. And she was lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor of the Kiwanis. Yeah, but she was. And I also was lieutenant governor. We both had the privilege of wearing these very nice $200 red jackets. And well, good. Good. Anyway, very versatile, McMinnville graduate, very good at banking, and been banking pretty much all of her life. And of course, she's a lot younger.
Okay, I'm going to try and hold this to three things. The first one is, I came a little after my siblings of Bob, Dick, and Mary. Bob, Dick, and Mary being the oldest. And the story that I heard the whole time that I was growing up from my siblings, who were all gone and had families and lives of their own by the time I came along, was Bob was so happy when I was born because he was no longer the baby. And our dad had a way of calling the youngest one in the family baby. So even though Bob was 19, he was the baby, and that's what Daddy called him until I came along. And then I was the baby, and Daddy called me that until the day he passed away. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, Bob was happy when I was born. Not sure about Dick and Mary, but Bob was really happy. Number two is that there was a time in my life when I came back to Oregon after having been away for many years. And I was a single mom with 2 little kids, and I depended on my folks a lot. But what I can say about my brother Bob is that he took interest in me, and he took interest in my kids. And he would come to visit us, and having been away for many, many years, I wasn't really used to having a lot of family around. But what I appreciated the most about Bob was the interest that he took in my kids, because they didn't have a father figure at that point. But Bob made them laugh. He took them for ice cream. He took them to the movies. He even let him drive his car when he shouldn't have done that, because they were really little. But in any case, I will never ever forget that, and neither have my children. So Uncle Bob always had a very special heart for them, and they for him. There was a time in my life when my head was way too big, and Bob and I didn't often see eye to eye on many things. And so I think that Bob said this to people too, but when people would find out that I was Bob White's sister, I would say, and don't hold that against me. But I have a feeling he said that too, to others. But the big head is gone, and now I hear and I know all of the things that Bob has done for this community and for Yamhill County. And I want him to know that I'm proud to be his sister. The last thing I want to mention is that we lost our older sister much earlier in the year, our sister Mary. And I have every one of Bob's books, except I don't think I have that 4th one. That story that you read was not familiar to me. But in any case, Bob had made sure that I had every one of his books. And I tried reading them, I really did. But a lot of them took place during a time when I wasn't here. It was back when the kids were growing up with Mom and Dad long before I came along. But after my sister passed away, within 3 weeks I had read every one of Bob's books. And it gave me a whole new appreciation, not only for my mom and my dad, but for my siblings. So Bob, thank you.
I want to add a comment to you. If you're sitting down, as Linda mentioned, we had quite a famous sister, and I forgot to mention her name was Mary Henderson. And most of you in this room know that name as the founder of Henderson House, and it's helped thousands of women that have been tortured by various ways. I used to take her daughter, Lori, and she used to help me sell cherries. She was about 12 years old, and I said, "You know how to drive a car?" And she said, "No." I said, "I'm going to teach you how to drive a car." And I took her out, and taught her to drive on that one-lane highway at Piedmont, and let her drive it quite a few times. And she was telling her mom and her husband, John, says, "Oh yeah, Bob, let me drive again today." Ooh, the roof was always going to fall in. That kid does not drive until she gets a learner's permit. And I said, "Okay, I won't do it anymore." She borrowed John's car one night and brought it to James, and I was so happy. Anyway, if this isn't a new for this meeting, it's a wonderful meeting. I would just like to thank all of you smiling faces